welcome to Janataa ki Adaalat. Our today's topic of discussion is unemployment. Now, before I actually introduce our guests, let me set up some pretext for our viewers as to why we are talking about unemployment. Every year, 4.75 people enter the workforce, and by 2027, we are expected to have a workforce about 1 billion people, which is the largest in the world. Now, the world and the country in particular recognizes this as an unparalleled opportunity to actually repeat the East Asian miracle. Now, despite this huge potential that we have, you know what our statistics say? CMIA reports an unemployment rate of 7.9% currently. In 2018, Periodic Labour Force Survey declared that our unemployment was 6.1%, and that was the highest in 45 years. What's happening to our potential, the young workforce that we have? Despite all this, why are our unemployment rates so high? Let's explore, let's discuss, let's debate. Our first guest is Mr. Chandra Prakash. He graduated from NIT Roorkela in 2018. Let's understand what his perspective of things are. So, Chandra, could you actually take us through your experience of finding jobs? Because you've told us multiple times that it's gotten increasingly difficult to find jobs, and you're not finding the suitable job for a lot of reasons. So, could you actually help us? Could you actually take us through your experiences?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you, Shravya, for this introduction. I graduated from one of the very best schools in India, and frankly, I would say I'm finding very difficult. There are not enough entry-level jobs for graduates like me in India. I'm literally finding it very difficult to get a job.
Yeah.
And the ones I get through are not financially not financially beneficial to me. Like the kind of education I have got, that does not match to my skill set which I have learned at my job. And when I want to start up on my own, I am finding it difficult in that also. So I am going nowhere. I don't know where I'm going, what I'm doing, where I'm going through, and it is very difficult at this point of time in my life.
Right. It's totally understandable. Some things that I identify is he's talking about there's a clear mismatch in the kind of skills that he's acquired and the kind of financial benefits that he gets from a job. He's also talked about how it's not very intellectually challenging. Let's move on to Rashmi, the CEO of XYZ company. Thank you so much for joining us, Rashmi. So we've heard from Chandra what his actual issues are. Could you actually tell us what your demand side of the issues are? How do you plan to fulfill them? And what exactly do you have to say about this entire issue?
Sure, thank you, Shravya. So I would like to start off by saying that for an industry like XYZ company, the demand side is growing, booming at a very fast pace. So we have constant demand for talent. However, I would like to offer a little bit of a different perspective to the same issue that Chandra spoke about, the mismatch of talent. Our HR constantly complains about how the kind of skill set that we are offering is not the same kind of skill set that we very often get. We find a lot of entry-level graduates who have a very high-level idea of how the industry works, but not the kind of subject matter expertise that's required in the field. Now, moving on to another side of this issue, sometimes even when we find the right kind of skill set, we are not able to instantly hire them. And this essentially happens very often because of a multitude of regulations that we need to go through before we can reallocate our current workers to a different function where they're probably a better fit. So this is a constant struggle for us to get in new talent and reallocate our current talent.
All right. So she's actually addressed some very important issues. She's given a different spin-off to the skill mismatch. She's also talking about some governmentary regulations that hinder some processes for them. Let me actually move on to a third guest, Ashish Sankhala. Thank you so much for joining us, Ashish. He's a spokesperson of the Labour Ministry. So, what exactly do you have to say about this? What are the government regulations, and what's the rationale behind those policies? And also, what are the additional policies that government is, formulated to engage the unemployed youth of India?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Shravya, and your audience here for inviting me to the show. I'd like to begin by saying that the government's try to address both sides of the demand and supply equation in the labor force or in the labor market. To simplify industries to function, we have actually taken the existing set of 44 labor regulations and codified them into 4 labor codes. To address that issue further, we've also taken up the job of setting up committees to kind of address that equation. Moving on further, we've also tried to bridge the supply gap in the market. We've undertaken skill development programs within a lot of ITIs at each state level. And in addition to doing that, I'd also like to bring your attention to the government's flagship programs for both the development of labor skills as well as getting in on startups into the industry, into our country. To get people skilled up, we have set up the Skill India program, which is basically providing young workforce both resources as well as facilities to learn and get better. And in addition to doing that, we also have the Startup India program, which is meant to attract both foreign venture capital as well as boost the Indian entrepreneurial spirit and sort of take the country forward.
I'd like to interrupt, but that is not clearly happening. If that would have happened, I would have got a job by now.
Yeah, right. So we totally understand your plight, but let's not interrupt each other, and let's actually see, let's actually find solutions for this. I now move on to our last and final guest for the day, Mr. Arvind Swami Balasubramanian. Mr. Arvind, thank you so much for joining us. He is a chief economist from CMIA. We would like to understand, there's a clear mismatch between what the government has to say and what the unemployed youth has to say. So what are your recommendations? What's your take on this? And how do you think we can improve the situation in India currently?
नमस्कार प्रिय दोस्तों, थैंक यू श्राव्या जी, मुझे आपके शो पर आमंत्रित करने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you very much. So, indeed, a lot has been done by the government in the recently with regards to alleviating unemployment, with regards to codification of labor laws. However, we believe that these efforts have not been enough. We therefore suggest the further codification of existing labor laws and regulation under only one labor code. In fact, in the report that we recently submitted to the government, we recommend establishing a committee under the Ministry of Labor that would supervise the efforts and the codification and the execution of employment regulations under this newly established labor code. So that's one thing. Another contentious issue is the Industrial Disputes Act. In its current shape, it significantly hurts the progress of our economy because it imposes significant restrictions on the industries when it comes to the issue of reallocation, workers' reallocation. So we suggest that these along with other outdated employment regulations be further deregulated.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for your recommendations, by the way. So we got a perspective from our unemployed youth of India, one very talented youth. We got perspectives from the CEO of XYZ company. We got some information about the policies from the government, and we received some recommendations from the chief economist. So with all this different perspectives, we've explored different issues also, like skill mismatch, which was a primary issue, and then another primary issue was government regulations, which actually hinder some processes that companies want to follow. So let's see where this goes. I'll actually leave you, the audience, to think about it and to process this. We'll keep coming back to you with more such interesting issues and topics. Let's see where India goes. Hopefully it goes in a fruitful direction. Jai Hind. Stay tuned.